5 spine-chilling tales of night shift workers. Discover the sinister secrets they revealed. Lara's heart raced as the doors of Maplewood General Hospital slid shut behind her. The shrill hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sickly shadows as she grabbed her mop and bucket. The night shift had begun again. But tonight felt different. The air was thick with an unshakable unease, and even the floors, slick with cleaner, seemed to whisper warnings. Each step echoed down the long, empty corridors, elongating the silence that loomed like a specter. There were stories here, stories she wished didn't haunt her thoughts. That it started softly, like the rustling of leaves in a breeze. Whispers seemed to swirl around her, forming elusive snippets of conversations caught just out of reach. Help us, they pleaded, but only the flickering lights answered. Nights felt alive in Maplewood, as if its very walls bore witness to the secrets held within. A shiver crept down her spine, the weight of loss hung heavy in the air, then it struck a poster she hadn't seen before, pinned beside the trauma bay. Missing, Jennifer Quinn. Last seen near the old psychiatric ward. The edges were frayed and yellowed, like memories long forgotten. Each shift brought more faces of those who vanished in dark corners of Maplewood. Their eyes seemed to follow her, and with every glance, Lara felt her heart beat a little faster. There was something dangerous lurking beneath the surface, and that danger was beginning to unveil itself. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing hour, the whispers intensified. They wasn't just voices anymore, they morphed into anguished cries begging for salvation. We're closer than you think. The hair on her arms stood on end. Panic clawed at her mind, twisting it into knots. The once familiar routes through the hospital felt foreign and perilous, as if the very walls conspired against her. Meanwhile, Stan was caught in his own nightmare at the diner. The strange man at the bar simply sat, his gaze carving into Stan's thoughts. With every words, the stranger revealed fragments of Stan's life, details no one should know. Your little girl, I know where she is, he rasped, his tone like an unwelcome chill. Fear spiraled into Stan's chest, freezing him in place. What did this stranger want? Back at the hospital, Lara stumbled into the staff lounge, searching for comfort but finding only unease. The flickering light overhead buzzed ominously, and in the corner of her eye, she saw a figure, a nurse staring blankly at the wall, lips moving silently. What do you see? Lara dared to ask, but received only a vacant gaze in return. Each moment felt like sand trickling through an hourglass, with danger growing ever closer. Is Maplewood turning against them? As dawn threatened to break, they both sensed they were teetering on the edge of something dark. Will they confront the town's hidden horrors, or will the shadows claim them? The night held its breath, closing in on them, leaving only questions swirling in the air. Lara leaned against the cool metal of the staff lounge countertop, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. The nurse's blank stare still lingered like smoke in her mind. She could feel the unease swelling around her, wrapping tighter and tighter, and just as she thought about leaving, the overhead lights blinked erratically. A soft clang echoed from the supply closet like a whisper from the other side. Hello? She called, forcing her voice to break the oppressive silence. No answer. Just the faint sounds of the hospital breathing, creaks and groans beneath the weight of the night. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, intertwining with the silence like a sinister melody. Help us, we're closer. Help. With each step into the uncertain darkness, the old memories flooded back, images of lurking shadows and missing posters she had sworn to forget. Adrenaline pushed her forward, her grip tightening around the mop handle as though it were a weapon against the shadows closing in. The vending machine hummed in the corner, a flickering light casting eerie shadows that danced across the wall. Lara forced a laugh to shake off the mounting fear, thinking about how ridiculous she was acting. After all, it was just a shift, right? But was it really? She could feel the panic clawing at her throat again, squeezing tighter as she approached the supply closet, breath hitching in anticipation. Pausing, she pressed her ear to the cold door, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped animal. "Is anyone in there?" A heartbeat, barely perceptible, responded. But it wasn't human. She jumped back, her heart racing. The sound was animalistic, guttural, a reminder of something broken. "Oh God," Lara whispered as the scraping intensified, a fierce shuffling as if something frail yet fierce was caught in a desperate struggle. She couldn't stay here. The nurse's vacant gaze loomed in her mind, urging her to flee, to escape unseen horrors. Just as she turned to bolt for the exit, a shadow flitted by the doorway, freezing her in place. Dark, fleeting, no more than the blink of an eye. But she knew something was watching her. Across the town, Stan sat immobile at the diner, the stranger's words echoing in his head like a ticking clock. "Your little girl, I know where she is." The man's demeanor shifted, and an unsettling smile crept over his face, revealing teeth too white, too sharp. "What do you want?" Stan finally blurted out. Panic twisted in his gut, sharp and unyielding. The murmurs of patrons faded away, and only the stranger remained, as though the world had narrowed to a single point of focus. "Just a message," the stranger crooned, leaning in closer, the air growing thick and cold. "But it'll cost you." At that moment, a shout broke through the diner's thick tension, slicing it like glass. All heads turned. A customer was standing, pointing toward the window. "What is that?" Back at Maplewood, Lara's breath came in heavy gasps. She backed away slowly from the supply closet, and suddenly the lights flickered out completely, leaving her in total darkness. The voices crescendoed, a symphony of anguished cries, urging her to confront what lurked just beyond the light. With panic gripping her throat, she finally turned, bolting toward a flickering exit sign at the end of the hall. But as she ran, the void behind her felt ready to consume her whole. As the darkness grew heavier, she sprinted forward, the air cold and electric around her. What awaited her outside that door? Was it freedom, or the deepest horrors of Maplewood that had claimed so many before? The night was alive with secrets waiting to be unveiled. And so she ran, desperate to escape the chaos, unsure if she was heading toward salvation or into the heart of terror. The exit sign flickered like a dying star, pushing Lara forward into the dark abyss. Her heart raced, matching the frantic rhythm of her thoughts. She could almost feel the fingers of the shadows reaching for her, grasping, clawing, urging her to stop. Sweat trickled down her back, each drop a reminder of the dread creeping in. As she burst through the door, the hallway stretched out before her, an endless corridor lined with sterile walls and vacant rooms, whispering her name in haunting echoes. "Lara, come play, what do you want?" She gasped, but silence answered her. The strain of her voice seemed to dissipate into the cold air, leaving only the chilling cries that rippled through the hospital, weaving in and out like ghosts navigating a forgotten pathway. Fumbling, she turned toward a nearby nurse's station, barely lit by the dying overhead lights. She peered behind the counter, half expecting to find comfort in familiar faces. Instead, the room was empty, save for the scattered papers and a single beeping monitor that felt more sentinel than support. The dread clawed at her, demanding that she leave, yet something in the air held her there. "Where is everyone?" she whispered, feeling more alone than ever. A sudden crash echoed from down the hall, sharp and unforgiving. The sound soaked into her blood, igniting a primal instinct to flee. But instead, her curiosity pulled her like a magnetic force. Maybe she would find another soul, someone who could explain the darkness swirling around her. As she moved cautiously, her sneakers muffled against the linoleum floor, she spotted a flicker of movement, a silhouette darting around the corner. "Hello?" she called out, her voice a paper-thin thread in the cold, lifeless atmosphere. No response, but the whispers seemed to grow closer, more urgent, as if breathing life back into the shadows she'd tried so hard to escape. She followed the shape, her heart pounding louder, threading through the maze of patient rooms. Each door loomed large, imposing, as if guarding secrets she wasn't meant to uncover. The air grew thick, suffocating, with the scent of antiseptic mingling with an unsettling metallic tang that scraped against her senses. Then she stumbled upon room 217, the door slightly ajar. Through the crack, she saw a dark figure hunched over something on the floor. It was still and silent, the type of stillness that felt alive with menace. "Is anyone in there?" she whispered, though her instincts screamed for her to run away. The figure shifted, and a chill raced down her spine. Barely visible through the crack, pale hands clawed at something beneath them. Flashes of crimson caught her gaze, snapshots of horror reflected in the dust-caked floor. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging the hallway into deeper darkness. A scream erupted from within that room, high-pitched and filled with terror. Lara's heart froze. She knew then that whatever was inside was either dying or dealing out death itself. Forcing her feet to turn, she ran back, tearing through the corridor, breathless and wild. Panic surged as the whispers grew louder, blending with the shouts of past patients, warning her, pleading with her, get out before it's too late." Just then, she collided with something solid, a wall of cold flesh. A hand gripped her shoulder, fingers curling like a vice. "Dear God," she gasped, looking up into a shadowed face that split into a grin, revealing too many teeth and too much darkness. Behind them, the whispers sharpened into a singular voice, clear and terrifying. She should have stayed. Now she's ours. What had she stepped into? With no retreat and nowhere to hide, Lara's mind raced with a frantic escape plan. But would she make it out, or had she become just another lost echo in Maplewood's ominous halls? As the grip tightened, the darkness surged forward, threatening to swallow her whole. And at that moment, all hope hung on the line. Would the shadows claim her too, or was something darker about to awaken? The grip tightened, cold and unyielding. Lara's body froze, caught between fight or flight. She trembled, the darkness surrounding her thick enough to choke on. "Let go of me!" she cried, her voice shaking, barely holding on to defiance, but the shadowy figure only tightened its hold, dragging her back into the oblivion she'd tried to escape. Every instinct screamed for her to break free, yet the darkness wrapped around her like a spider's web, each thread pulsating with dread. "Come play," the voice rasped closer now, a chilling parody of innocence that seeped into her bones. Lara's frantic thoughts raced. This wasn't a game. She was not a player, she was prey. With a surge of adrenaline, she struck out, elbowing the figure with all her strength. The grip loosened just enough for her to slip away. She darted down the corridor, lungs burning, pounding footsteps echoing behind her like vengeful spirits. She focused on the exit sign ahead, a distant beacon of hope. Her mind was a storm of visions, the bloodied hand on the floor, shadows writhing, and the sound of that soul-crushing scream. But she couldn't afford to think about them. She needed to escape. As she sprinted, her sneakers skidded against the floor's slick surface. Her heart thudded violently, brutally loud in her ears, matching the frantic rhythm of her desperate escape. And then, the whispers changed, morphing into something far more sinister. "You can't leave. You belong to us now." Fear pooled in her gut. Could it be? Could walking away from this bring something worse? But she had to try. Lara reached the end of the hallway, gasping as she flung herself against the heavy door that led outside. It wouldn't budge. She pounded against it, the metal screaming in protest. Behind her, the darkness thickened, an oppressive wall of malevolence closing in. "Help!" she cried, but the words felt empty, swallowed by the insatiable gloom. Desperation clawed at her throat, and her fingers numbly searched for a handle or latch. Finally, with a bone-jarring clang, the door creaked open just a sliver. Hope raced through her, just a crack wide enough. She pushed harder, her shoulder screaming as she forced her way through. But the darkness followed her, flooding the doorway like a tidal wave. It whispered promises of despair, murmurs of lost souls, and she could feel it conflicting with her desire to escape. In a final burst of energy, Lara leapt forward, breaking into the night outside. She stumbled out into the crisp air, gasping for breath, her heart still battling against panic. The parking lot was scattered with shattered glass and abandoned vehicles, an eerie silence nesting over it all, but the moment of relief shattered when she turned. The door behind her slammed shut. But it wasn't the door that set her racing pulse to a new level. It was the figures she could barely make out amidst the darkness creeping out from the building's shadows, moving like a swarm of blackened flies, coalescing into unmistakable shapes. "Where do you think you're going?" they called out in unison, an echo of the uncanny voice from before. Lara turned away, running again, else the figures would reach her with their icy fingers. But each step felt heavier, as though something was dragging her back. She darted past cars, glancing nervously behind her. The shadows were relentless, and they were faster than she was. A flicker of light caught her eye, a distant glow from the edge of the lot where thick trees bordered the darkness. It seemed inviting a chance at safety. But as she ran, she couldn't shake the feeling that the very forest beckoned her, reaching out with ancient, twisted limbs. Each step felt like it was pulling her into a deeper abyss. The shadows gathered strength, drawing closer, whispering in a sing-song voice. Come back to us." This twisted game had become life or death. Would that haunting call pull her back into the very darkness she had fought to escape? She could barely see the path through the trees, but a decision loomed ahead. With every ounce of determination, Lara propelled herself forward. Was there salvation within the depths of those woods, or a fate she could never foresee? The whispers echoed in her ears, blending with the rustling leaves, while the shadows drifted closer, hungry for what they'd lost. And as the edge of the forest loomed ahead, one thing was certain: whatever lay within would decide her fate. In this landscape painted with horror, would she illuminate the shadows or be devoured by them entirely? The trees loomed large, their branches stretching out like skeletal hands ready to grasp her. Lara plunged into the darkness, the sound of her breath mixing with the rustle of leaves. Behind her, the whispers crescendoed, a cacophony of voices beckoning, pleading, and commanding. Join us, no." She clenched her fists, pushing deeper into the thick underbrush, heart racing with every step. Each footfall seemed to echo louder, as though the forest itself was amplifying her terror. It was suffocating, the air felt thick and damp, like the very atmosphere was alive with malice. Suddenly, she stumbled, her foot catching on an unseen root. She fell to the ground, hard. Pain shot through her knee, but she couldn't stop. With a grimace, she forced herself up, ignoring the sharp sting. Time was short, she could still hear the distant rustling behind her, the figures almost upon her. Then she saw it, a faint glimmer, a flicker of light filtering through the trees. Hope ignited inside her, bright and fierce. Was that a way out? She shifted her direction, pushing towards it. Lara's speed quickened, the adrenaline flooding her veins, but so did her dread. What awaited her at the source of that light? "Keep running," a whisper slithered through the air, almost comforting. "You're so close." A chill ran down her spine. It didn't feel right. She shook her head, trying to clear the lies that wrapped around her mind. But the light drew nearer, pulsing like a heartbeat, inviting her forward like a moth to a flame. As she broke through the last of the trees, her heart sank. It wasn't an exit. It was a clearing, its ground littered with twisted branches and shards of glass, reflecting the moonlight like jagged teeth. In the center stood an old, crumbling statue. An angel, its wings broken and its face eroded by time. It watched her as if it could see inside her, a voyeur of human fears. The shadows enveloped the edges of the clearing, flickering ominously, creeping closer. She could feel their weight pressing down on her, as if the forest itself conspired to keep her trapped. There was nowhere to go. Panic clawed at her throat, she could taste the metallic tang of fear mingling with the damp earth. "Don't you want to see what they've all seen?" A shadow detached itself from the others, stepping forward through the swirling darkness. It was a figure, indistinct in shape but ominous in presence, glowing faintly with an unsettling light. "You could join us in the eternal night." "No." Lara gasped, backing away, her heart racing faster as she stumbled over debris. She wasn't ready to give in. Not now. The figure smiled, a grin so wrong it sent shivers through her entire being. "They all come to us, eventually. It's only a matter of time." She spotted a path leading deeper into the forest, a gamble, but better than surrendering to the shadows. With a final look at the horrid figure, Lara sprinted again, her fear now mingling with wild determination, but the branches seemed intent on grasping her, snagging at her clothes and pulling at her hair. Whispers of lost souls echoed louder, urging her to turn back. "You belong to us. You have always belonged." The ground dipped suddenly, and Lara felt herself sliding down a slope, shoes slipping on the damp ground. She fell into a hollow, landing with a thud. The world around her was dark, and the sounds of the forest faded momentarily as she lay still, breathless. Then she heard voices, clear now, right above her. They weren't just whispers anymore, they were full-fledged conversations, frantic, desperate. "Help me. Don't leave me." Lara sat up, fear flooding her senses. What was she hearing? Were these souls trapped by the darkness, like she was? She crawled forward, peering out of the hollow, and saw the figures standing at the edge, watching her. They weren't just whispers anymore. They had faces twisted in anguish. "Help us, Lara. Help us escape." They cried in unison, their eyes hollow and pleading, and there she was, caught between the light of the statue and the haunting cries from her own dark depths. She had a choice to make. Would she fight against the shadows, risking the unknown? Or would she succumb to the desperate screams echoing in the night, giving up her chance at freedom? As she hesitated, the dark laughter returned, swirling around her, wrapping tighter than ever. What waited for her if she turned back? What would stand at her side if she leapt into the depths of the shadows? A decision loomed, one that could seal her fate. What would it cost her to choose? "Help us," they whispered again, and Lara felt herself trembling once more. The hollow pulsed with an eerie energy, each whisper amplified until it felt like a crescendo of despair pressing against her skin. Lara's heart raced, the shadows around her thickening as the anguished faces loomed closer, their hollow eyes pinning her down. It was suffocating, their cries wrapping around her like chains, dragging her deeper into uncertainty. "Don't listen to them," she urged herself, her breath shallow. Yet, their voices crawled into her mind, relentless. "Help us. We're lost. Don't leave us here." The urge to reach out was powerful, a magnetic pull she couldn't shake. She imagined herself joining their ranks, becoming one of them, forever trapped yet free from her burdens, her fears. But was that truly freedom? Or merely another layer of suffering? Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed above, jolting her from her internal turmoil. A branch fell, splintering against the ground near the edge of the hollow. It startled the figures momentarily. They paused, their eyes flickering with something like fear. Seizing the moment, Lara crawled backward, searching for any way to escape, an exit from this nightmare. The darkness behind her felt alive, shifting and twisting. Something wasn't right. The glimmer of the statue haunted her memory. It had promised knowledge, a glimpse into the eternal night. A new sound rippled through the air, a low hum that grew progressively louder, punctuated by the sound of heavy breathing. It came from deeper in the forest, like something awakening. Her instinct took over, she needed to move, to get away from the faces that twisted in agony above her. "Help us, Lara." One of them reached out an imploring hand, but she turned, scrambling back up the slope. No. She couldn't fall into their despair. The faces fell away, their screams blending into the thickening silence, nearly drowned out by the ominous hum that grew closer. She reached the top, but ahead of her, the trees swayed ominously, as if something was approaching, a dark shape moving through the mist, its form shifting. The moonlight caught a glint of something sharp, something deadly. Her legs screamed from the exertion, but adrenaline surged through her. She had to keep running. She darted into the undergrowth, branches tearing at her skin, roots tripping her up. The hum was rising, weaving in and out of the trees, a dark melody that promised pain. Then she stopped. The forest opened again ahead, but something was different. The air felt colder. A clearing stretched out before her, shrouded in an unnatural mist. The statue was still there, but now, it was not alone. Figures emerged from the fog, 12 in total, their faces softly glowing. They spun slowly, entranced, whispering to one another, their voices weaving a chant that chilled her to the bone. Join us, echoed like a morbid lullaby. Lara stumbled backward, terror clawing at her throat. What were they? Were they the lost souls? Or were they something far worse? A loud thud shook the ground. The dark shape had arrived, shrouded in shadow, formidable and unyielding. It loomed over the clearing, and the whispering stopped, replaced by a deafening silence that pressed against her ears like an unbearable weight. What did it want? What fate awaited her here? Make your choice, Lara, the figure rasped, its breath fogging the air, palpable and nightmarish. Will you join the lost, or face your doom? The question hung heavy in the air, and Lara felt the heat of panic bloom within her chest. But there was no going back now. Not after all she had seen, all the choices that had led her here. The shadows danced around her, each offering a path, each taunting her with promises of blissful ignorance or crippling despair. Lara felt the weight of every loss, every regret, pressing onto her. In front of her lay the unknown, a fork in the dark. And in that moment, she realized the true horror of her reality. Some choices can never be undone. Choose wisely, the figure urged, its voice dripping with malice. Lara took a step forward, uncertainty gnawing at her gut, her heart racing faster than she thought possible. What lay ahead? Would it be salvation, or damnation? With a shattering breath, she took another step into the mist. The mist clung to her like a shroud, swirling as she stepped deeper into the unknown. The weight of the figure's gaze felt like a lead weight on her shoulders. Each breath was a struggle, her lungs constricted by a fear that threatened to suffocate her. The chant faded, but the moist air buzzed with anticipation. What is it you desire? The shadowy form croaked again, the words laced with a twisted hunger. Lara could feel the lure of the glowing figures behind her, their curious faces tilted ever so slightly like moths drawn to a flame. A voice within her screamed to turn back to the hollow, to the cries of the lost. Don't listen. She begged herself, but the temptation of the dull thrum of acceptance gnawed at her. Freedom from pain, from decisions. Just to be one of them. Yet another voice, a desperate flicker, screamed louder for her to run, to fight. She was not lost. Not yet. Instinctively, she took another step forward. The ground trembled beneath her, the earth almost alive with anticipation, urging her to commit to the choice pressed upon her. Her heart pounded like a war drum, a primal urge to flee, battling against the intoxicating call of the figures. Embrace the void, they whispered in harmony. We can offer you peace forever. Lara's hands trembled, her fingers flexing as they braced against the approaching darkness. Enough! Lara shouted, her voice breaking through the suffocating darkness like a beacon. The breath snagged in her throat, caught between fear and defiance. I want to be one of you. I refuse. The figures recoiled slightly, their glowing eyes narrowing. For a fleeting moment, she believed she saw flickers of anger dance across their ethereal faces. The shadowed figure's smile widened, revealing rows of jagged teeth, each glistening like shards of glass. So brave, little one. But bravery can be a fool's armor, it hissed, the sound echoing, distorting as if the very air twisted on its axis. In that moment, the peace Lara craved began to crush her underfoot. The ground split in a deep crack, jagged and ugly, unfurling toward the figures. A hot wind erupted, carrying the scent of decay and despair, wrapping around her like a vice. The clearing spun, the world blurring as the figures surged toward her, their voices sharpening into a frantic cacophony. "Join us!" they screamed, their faces now contorted in anguish. "Run!" The darkness beckoned, stretching its tentacles toward her, pulling her into its depths. Desperation surged. She darted sideways, not a thought of the glowing faces or the swarm of chilling whispers. She was fighting for her life now, fighting the choices stealing her breath. The forest erupted into chaotic movement as she bolted away from the clearing, branches clawing at her skin, the shadows pursuing her relentlessly. The hum returned, deepening, vibrating through her bones like a sinister warning. Lara could feel each pulse, each thrum of malevolence pressing against her back, but one question nagged at her as she ran. What had she unleashed? The crack behind her widened, and she dared a glance back. The shadow figure had followed her, its form morphing and extending unnaturally, as if the forest itself obeyed its command. Just beyond the clearing, Lara spotted a narrow path shrouded in darkness. Would it be an escape, or another doom? With no time for hesitation, she plunged into the abyss, praying it led her somewhere away from the horrors that clamored behind, but the forest thickened around her, strangling any remnants of hope. "Come back" echoed all around her, a steady drumbeat from the souls she thought she had left behind. As she raced, a glint caught her eye up ahead. Shattered glass? Or another trap? With each step, she felt the ground shake, and a chilling realization washed over her. The voices weren't just calling her back, they were guiding something else. Something more sinister. What waited just ahead? Would she find her way out, or would the shadows finally consume her? The darkness swallowed her whole as she plunged into the narrow path. Thick branches clawed at her arms, each scratch an agonizing reminder of the figures trailing just behind. The air grew heavy, stifling, pushing against her like a predator eager for its meal. Lara let out a breathless gasp, her heart pounding in rhythm with the chaos around her. With each frantic step, that chilling realization gnawed at her. Whatever lurked in the shadows was not just hunting her, it was using the voices to draw her in, a siren's call for something terrible. Lara stumbled, nearly losing her footing as the roots twisted beneath her like gnarled fingers. Fear shot through her as she pressed onward, barely able to see where the path led. It twisted and turned, every corner a potential dead end, every rustle of the leaves amplifying her dread. "Where does this lead?" she cried out into the suffocating blackness, her voice trembling from fear and fatigue. Silence answered her, amplifying the relentless buzz of her racing thoughts, and then, she heard its soft footsteps joining the cadence of her own, a harsh whisper that made her skin crawl. The shadows were closing in. "Come back," they beckoned, the melody haunting and familiar, tugging at the deepest recesses of her mind. She shook her head violently, trying to drown out their calls. "No. I want to go back." The path narrowed to a chokehold, the trees loomed closer, their branches laden with the weight of unseen eyes. Panicking, she pushed forward and stumbled into a clearing. The moon bathed the area in ghostly light, revealing a pile of bones and shards of glass, reminiscent of shattered dreams long forsaken. The hollow, broken whispers echoed here too, swirling around her like vengeful spirits. "No!" Lara gasped, stepping back as she realized what lay at the center: a blackened, twisted altar, slick with darkness, its surface pulsating as if alive. It was a beacon, drawing in lost souls, filling them with despair. The figures she had encountered before, they were echoes of those who had come before, trapped between worlds. Suddenly, the shadowed figure lunged from the trees, its form bone-thin, stretching and bending unnaturally, reaching for her. Luna swallowed hard, instinct screaming at her to flee. The chill of impending doom danced over her, icy tendrils wrapping around her heart. "You cannot escape what you are." The figure hissed, its voice a terrible symphony of anguish. "You are meant to join us." Lara turned and fled, but not before snatching a sharp shard from the ground, a glimmer of possible defense against the overwhelming dread. As she sprinted, she could feel the ground pulsating beneath her like a living thing, urging her to stop. But that light had beckoned from the distance, a thin sliver illuminating another path through dense foliage. Was it safety or another trap? She gritted her teeth, fear clawing at her throat, drowning out rational thought. Run, she urged herself, her legs pumping furiously against the nightmarish whispering. As she dashed toward the light, the darkness writhed behind her, desperate and hungry, ready to snuff out her flickering resolve. With a final surge, she burst through the brush and skidded to a stop. The clearing opened up before her, and as she took in her surroundings, her blood turned to ice. The place was a cemetery, tombstones jutting from the ground like crooked teeth, grave markers etched with names she didn't recognize. The shadows were all there now, filling the space with an expectant silence. "Welcome back, Lara," they cooed. What had she awakened? What power did she unknowingly stir? The altar loomed large and ominous ahead, drenched in moonlight. It reeked of despair. Would she have the strength to face the truth buried in her past? The pulse of the ground quickened, and the night spoke again, this time a warning. Choose wisely. Would this be the end of Lara's fight? Or the beginning of something much worse? The shadows danced around Lara, their whispers curling like smoke into her ears. She felt their cold fingers brushing against her skin, tugging at her, pulling her toward the altar. The air was thick, every breath tasted of impending doom. Goosebumps prickled along her arms as she fought to maintain her footing, her heart thudded painfully against her ribs, each thump a desperate reminder of her humanity. "No. Not here. I want to stay." She tightened her grip on the shard, its sharp edge cutting into her palm. The sensation grounded her, a fleeting reminder of the physical world amidst the supernatural chaos. Scanning the cemetery, panic clawed at her throat. Every grave bore a name, tokens from lives snuffed out too soon. How had she arrived here? What connection did she share with this cursed lot? She pushed through the suffocating quiet. The sharp silver moonlight glinted off the shard, illuminating her way just enough to catch a glimpse of the nearest headstone. Rachel Carter, it read, the letters worn and faded. The moment she focused, the name struck her like a bolt of lightning. Rachel, the girl from her nightmares, the one whose face haunted her in the midst of sleep. Her best friend, lost to the bittersweet tragedy of childhood echoes. Sudden anguish surged through her, flooding her heart with a prism of sorrow. "Rachel," she whispered, a shivering plea that echoed in the night. The shadows laughed, an eerie sound that twisted her gut with razor-sharp dread. "Don't you remember, Lara?" They sneered, their disembodied voices merging into a cacophony of anguish. "You brought her here. You made the choice." "No!" Lara screamed, her voice breaking against the weight of the revelation. The pieces of a dark puzzle began to fit together. The curse, the altar, this cemetery she had known. Choices made in youth had consequences that stretched into eternity. Her pulse hammered in her ears as she realized the connection. Trembling, she turned sharply, eyes darting toward the altar. It throbbed in a rhythmic pulse, each beat syncopating with her own heart. A figure manifested within the shadows, growing from the darkness like a flower in decay. It was Rachel, or a twisted representation of her, the eyes deep voids of despair, the smile an unsettling grin. "You could save me," Rachel's voice slithered through the night like a serpent. "But you didn't. You ran away. You left me to become this." "No." Lara's voice sharpened, desperation igniting a flicker of courage within her. "I tried. I thought I lost you." The broken echo of her friend's laughter echoed, sending shivers down Lara's spine. "You don't understand." The shadows surged forward, enveloping the altar in darkness. They were hungry for something more than just souls. They craved a reckoning. Lara hesitated, caught between her friend's image and the horror closing in on her. "What do you want from me?" "Join us." Rachel's voice intertwined with the whispers of the shadows, seductive yet laced with agony. "The choice was always yours." Reality warped around her, a kaleidoscope of pain and nostalgia. The shadows beckoned, promising release from regret but threatening to drag her into the abyss of lost souls. She clutched the shard tighter, the jagged edge digging deeper. "I want to let you take me," she shouted, defiance crashing through the weight of despair. The figures writhed, but the depth of the darkness quaked in response. An unsettling silence enveloped the graveyard, every shadow still as if waiting for an unseen cue. Would they strike now? Would she have to fight her own memories as well as the darkness? With every ounce of strength, Lara faced the altar anew. I will break the cycle, but what price would this resolve demand from her? And in that moment, the atmosphere shifted, the shadows withdrew, retreating like a tide not ready to conquer. But deep inside, a sense of foreboding hung in the air, and the ground trembled, whispering secrets too grave to ignore. What had she really known all along? And was she truly ready to face the truth? The question lingered, casting a shadow over her. Resolve, propelling her deeper into the heart of this nightmare. The growing silence was deafening, thick like molasses. Lara stood there, facing the altar, her breath hitching at the tumult of memories surging around her. She could feel the shadows coiling at her ankles, hungry and restless, wanting to reclaim what had been lost, what had been stolen. "Let her go," a voice echoed from the mass of darkness behind Rachel's specter, anchored and raw. It was a voice she recognized, her own. "You have haunted her long enough." The shadows recoiled as if burned, momentarily unsure. But the figure of Rachel remained firm, her grin widening, revealing teeth sharpened with resentment. "You think you can defy the darkness? You think you can break the cycle?" The wail of tortured souls rose in harmony, a chilling symphony underscoring Rachel's taunt. But Lara was no longer the scared girl who had run away. She tightened her grip on the shard, its cool edge biting into her palm. Every ounce of fear, every shred of guilt, every anguished cry of lost souls flowed into that blade, fueling it with the righteousness of her defiance. "I didn't leave you. I was afraid. But I won't let fear decide for me anymore," she shouted, her voice echoing in the graveyard, a fierce declaration against despair. The winds shifted, blowing through the cemetery and stirring the whispers into an uproar. The mist thickened, wrapping around her like a gauzy cocoon, but Lara would not be trapped. She stepped closer to the altar, unflinching. "No more running. I will face what I have done. I will confront the darkness, not join it." With a swift motion, she plunged the shard into the pulsing surface of the altar, feeling the tremor of ancient energy respond. The shadows roared, a sound that rattled her bones, but Lara stood firm. Light erupted from the altar, blinding and fierce, illuminating the figures that had stirred in the graveyard, bringing with it the pain of forgotten memories and lost laughter. "Face the truth," her voice resounded, steady despite the chaos. "You are not just lost souls. You are echoes of choices made. And I can't change the past, but I can change what comes next." The darkness writhed, the figures contorted, their wails rising higher as if fighting against the light, but the more energy she poured into her words, the more they struggled. She felt the connection strengthen with each heartbeat. They were bound to her, yet bound to nothing else. "Free yourselves," she cried, barely able to hear her own voice above the cacophony. "Let go of this hatred. I will not be like you." The shadows, sensing a fracture in their grip, surged forward, trying to snuff her out, but Lara remained unwavering, eyes locked onto Rachel. "You don't have to be a prisoner, either. You can find peace." In that moment, the air chilled, and everything grew still. The whispers faded, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of recognition in Rachel's eyes, as if a memory was being remembered, a bond unraveling. "Lara, please." Lara begged. "Let go. We can find each other again, but not like this." The specter faltered, and the shadows recoiled, losing their rhythm. Lara felt a rush of light surge from the altar, expanding outwards, breaking the grip that had tightened around her chest. She cried out once more, "I choose to live." I choose to rise. With a bone-shaking rattle, an explosion of light erupted from the altar, spreading across the graveyard like wildfire. The shadows dissipated, swirling into the night sky, taking their anguished cries with them. The cemetery transformed, the tombstones shining bright under the cleansing illumination as the figures began to fade, some smiling, some gasping with relief, as if shedding chains they had long forgotten. Rachel's image shimmered, her twisted form reshaping, revealing the girl Lara had once known. You really came," Rachel said, her voice softer now, laden with emotion. Tears streamed down Lara's cheeks, mingling with joy and sorrow. "I never stopped looking for you." With one last breath, the figure of Rachel dissolved into countless shimmering particles, ascending into the air, the weight of her pain lifting with her. Lara fell to her knees, breathless yet relieved. The shadows were gone. The night sky above her was alive with stars, twinkling brightly. She had faced the darkness within, confronted her fears, and emerged victorious. But she also knew this was not merely an ending, it was a new beginning. With dawn rising in the distance and the first light spilling warmth across the ground, Lara stood, feeling the weight of her past lift. She turned toward the path that led home forward, finally free, and above, the dawn spread its wings, welcoming a new journey, unburdened by fear, and filled with hope. Thank you for joining us on this chilling adventure. But don't go yet. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash the like button to feed the algorithm, letting everyone in on these spine-tingling tales. And don't forget to flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. What did you think happened to Lara and Rachel? Lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Let us keep this journey alive together.